Welcome everyone to the Money Counts webinar series presented by the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center. We are so happy to have you here today with us. And we are really just here to help you feel more comfortable, more confident, and more capable of making smart money decisions to support your overall financial future. I'm Melanie Schramm, and I'm one of the education program specialists here at the center. And it has been my pleasure to host this semester's webinar series. We are here on our final one for the semester, and we will be discussing environmental stewardship. With having recently celebrated Earth Day, I found this topic to be quite fitting. And it is a special one as we do have a guest with us. We have Jack Rummery from Penn State Sustainability in the Office of Physical Plant. So Jack, would you mind just saying a quick hello?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Melanie, thank you for having me here to kind of support this. As she mentioned, I'm Jack Rummery with Penn State Sustainability and just here to sort of lend some additional information on the realm of environmental stewardship and appreciate the opportunity to support this.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to have you here. You are definitely you are the expert when it comes to the sustainability and that. So I really appreciate you being here, and please feel free to jump in at any point in time. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to be here and really showing up today to learn about being intentional with your finances can be a win for the environment and your wallet. I do have some quick housekeeping that I want to go over. So we'll first test out the emoji reactions just to be sure that they're good, you know where they're at, all of that. So if it's your first time here, could you please hit the heart emoji? And if you have been here before, please hit the thumbs up. Okay, lots of hearts. Awesome. Lots of first timers. Great. Couple of people that we've seen in the past. Awesome. I want to give a quick 30-second version of what we are and who we are and what we do at the center. So here at the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center, we offer free one-on-one coaching for students and alumni. If you happen to be faculty or staff, which I do see a lot of staff members on, we offer PSLF consultations. So if anybody with us today is looking at public service loan forgiveness, please feel free to send us an email at finlit@psu.edu. We'd be happy to help. We also give presentations for classes, clubs, organizations, and cover all sorts of topics, everything from credit cards to debt to paying for college. You name it, we probably have it. We also have a handful of self-paced modules. We have a digital bookshelf. If you're on campus at University Park, you're welcome to stop by our office in Grange Building. We have nice financial wellness bookshelves. And if you are out at any of the Commonwealth campuses, you all have physical bookshelves as well. Everything we do here at the center is designed to help you make informed and confident financial choices. Okay, try to wrap up the housekeeping, but I want to point out we do partner with PNC and they offer additional coaching and resources for employees. They actually have an upcoming event in 2 weeks, May 12th. It is for Penn State employees on credit scores and credit reports. So it would be a great refresher. And that would be with Jake at noon. And you'll see the link for that. And I also want to shout out Office of Student Aid has a webinar on finalizing and maintaining aid. That's on May 7th. So still a bit out, but they do that at 5:30 in the evening, but they also record everything. So you can always check out their recording there. We often think of stewardship or being environmentally aware as recycling or turning off the lights. However, we're in this digital world, right? And our money has a massive unseen impact. So we'll look at what we buy, the conscious consumer, and we'll look at some digital and future impacts. So when we look at the definition kind of environmental stewardship, it's really just a fancy way of saying, let's leave the world better than we found it. And looking through a financial lens, it means that we aren't just consumers who buy things, rather we're managers and we choose what we restore, what we reduce, and we choose how to conserve the resources we have, money included as one of those resources. So being able to really look at that long-term view instead of just today's receipt. Jack, I'm going to pass it over to you here.
Yeah, hi everybody. Just to maybe really briefly reintroduce myself. So my name is Jack Romary, I am the Assistant Director for Sustainability in the Workplace here at the university. So um, I don't want to create the misconception to start here that we are using, the terms sustainability and environmental stewardship kind of interchangeably. Certainly not, but environmental stewardship, as I'm sure you understand or might have the sense of, is an inextricable part of sustainability. It is one of the kind of primary constituents of like what anyone's definition of sustainability is. Oftentimes we find ourselves asking folks that we work with or interns that we're looking to hire or colleagues across the university, what is your definition of sustainability? What does sustainability mean? And for a large portion of people, the kind of gateway into their understanding of sustainability starts with the environment. So I've got three different definitions of sustainability up on the screen here, and it might be that one of these really resonates with you, just kind of a simplified version of maybe what sustainability means. It might be that you see these three and feel like there's something really glaringly missing. Maybe none of these resonate with your personal definition of sustainability. But the point of putting these up here is that there is no wrong answer to what sustainability means to everybody, depending on their background, their, discipline of your vocation or your studies or whatever it is. That's kind of what ultimately is going to inform how you understand what sustainability is. So here actually is the definition for you that we operate with as the unit that is known as Penn State Sustainability, or the team, whatever you want to call us, that is known as Penn State Sustainability. We operate with an understanding that sustainability is the simultaneous pursuit of human health and happiness, environmental quality, and economic well-being for current and future generations. So you'll see, as I mentioned on that last slide, that the question of environmental stewardship, environmental well-being, environmental quality, whatever word you want to put in that box following the environment, is an essential part of our definition. But you'll notice that's only really 1/3 of what I've got up there. Human health and happiness comes first, and economic well-being comes third. Not to order those in any priority, but just to say that two out of the three kind of core parts of our definition of sustainability actually have to do with people and our forward thinking about what things are going to look like, down the line. That sort of word future being used there, I think, is another really essential piece of how we understand sustainability here as a team at Penn State. So one of the reasons that I was really excited to have the opportunity to collaborate and kind of consult and have conversations about the, content that's being shared today is that this intersection between the environment and people, and how people's decision making influences the environment, and how the decisions and choices that people have and make on a day-to-day basis, how those things kind of intersect. That's exactly what this presentation is really about if you zoom out on it. The intersection between environmental stewardship and financial literacy really hits a lot of the things that we as a unit, that is Penn State Sustainability, try to kind of, educate and engage folks around at this university. You'll see on the right side of this slide, I've got a really simple kind of graphic in case you're scratching your head and wondering, who is Penn State Sustainability? I hope not. I hope you've heard of us at some point or another, but just to give you a sense of kind of who we are as a team. We all kind of collectively refer to ourselves as Penn State Sustainability, but our team actually lives in multiple places across the university. So as Melanie mentioned earlier, I'm actually part of the Office of Physical Plant, OPP, which is where our operations team lives. So I do a lot of work in the space of, staff engagement and education, and we work with a lot of the kind of operational pieces. But we have folks that are part of our core team also in Penn State outreach, as well as undergraduate education. And not only does our team kind of live in diverse spaces at the university, but what we do is a really kind of diverse portfolio of things. And so I just threw a bunch of stuff on the screen here, and this might be sensory overload for you. But we do a lot of really cool stuff, and I hope that you've heard of some of it. Maybe some of this will be new to you. We do a lot for the university in terms of ranking and reporting. We're close partners with the student farm. We help with sustainable research labs. We work with employees. We help with raising money for different initiatives at campus. And all of these things are available on our website, and you can read more about them. So I appreciated the event link being shared earlier down in the chat by Haley. So feel free to take a look at our website to learn more. I know I get the sense that there's a pretty diverse group of folks that attend these webinars. And so maybe you're somebody who works in a space with faculty and researchers, and you might want to learn more about the Sustainable Labs program. Maybe you're somebody who works with students, in which case we have a lot of kind of great resources for students interested in learning more about environmental stewardship and sustainability. But I'd encourage you to kind of explore our website if you have never done that before, because we do a lot of cool stuff that I'm really glad to get the opportunity to share a little bit more and get in front of groups that previously did not maybe know as much about what we had to do. Just to zoom in before I kind of pass this back, and another one of the reasons that I was really glad to kind of have the opportunity to collaborate today is that, as I mentioned, I do a lot of work with staff engagement and education employees, I should say, rather than staff, because it does include faculty. Even, we do quite a bit with tech service workers up here in OPP. But I'm the co-lead of I'm one of the leaders of an employee resource group at the university, which you may or may not be familiar with. Employee resource groups are just kind of affinity groups or identity groups that are university-wide and kind of function in different ways. But our group is focused on folks who are interested in sustainability. I would assume that by the virtue of you attending today, you're curious to learn more about environmental stewardship and its overlap with financial literacy in this case, but maybe you're interested in sustainability more broadly and you'd like to be part of our employee resource group. We are always growing and evolving and still trying to get many efforts off the ground, but have done a lot of really cool things so far. We are doing lunch and learns. We have a monthly coffee morning here for folks at University Park, coffee and conversation. We have a mini grant available to folks who are interested in doing small sustainability projects in their office. We do a monthly virtual lunch series, much like this, where we have the opportunity to be online and talk with folks. There's an online Teams page. We build relationships and connect folks to others. So that email is up on the screen. Before I turn it back to Melanie, I just want to say if you feel like reaching out, you can also contact me directly, and I can put my email in the chat too. But if you're interested in being part of the SustainaLions Employee Resource Group, please feel free to reach out so that we can add you to our communications list. Now, with all that said, I hope that gives you some sense of, us as a partner to this effort here at the university. I really wanted to kind of, frame the idea at the start there that the intersection between human choices and systems and the environment is really key to what's you're going to have the opportunity to learn about today. And I'm excited to kind of see what the rest of Melanie has to share with us today. Thank you for the chance again to be part of this, and I'll hand it back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jack. Before we really dig in, I want to put some feelers out. And people, if people are asked if they want to shop sustainability, about 76% of us say yes. However, and I want to see if any of you can drop a number in the Q&A panel of what percentages of purchase that you actually think reflect those values. And I will tell you that our tensions are high, but our actions don't always keep up. And there's a massive gap between our values and our spending. And it's not necessarily because we don't care. Rather, it's because being a conscious consumer is very difficult in a world that's designed to make us click or make us feel like we need to click buy instantly. So I have somebody that sent over 10, right? And that's actually I'm excited to hear you say that. It is a little bit higher than that though. So when we look at actual receipts and bank statements, that number drops from 76% down to 38%. And so I want to make sure that everyone is aware today is not about guilt. Rather, we're looking at being able to see that needle and move away from accidental spending toward intentional management. Are you a conscious consumer? This is probably a big question that as we talk about these things, this maybe is something that is sitting with you. And at its core, conscious consumerism is about mindful management. I mentioned earlier about we're managers, right? It's recognizing that every dollar we spend is a vote for the kind of world that we want to live in. So if you think back to your most recent purchases, did the planet cross your mind when you made those purchases? And it's not a gotcha moment. we do talk a lot in our work in financial literacy about the emotions and the behaviors behind money. And again, looking at it in a spectrum where we can move away from that accidental spending and get that needle just a little bit more and more and more toward that intentional stewardship. And Jack was actually the one who pointed out to me that I almost skipped one of the most powerful tools. So thank you, Jack. And to be a conscious consumer, that most powerful tool is simply just buying nothing. We often know reduce, reuse, recycle, right? We've been hearing that since we were kids in elementary school. And oftentimes, if you think about it, we skip to the recycle part. However, reduce is where we tend to have the most leverage. And so, a few strategies that can help you to reduce, it will help you benefit your wallet. The first one is the power of the pause. It's that split second before you hit the checkout button and taking that moment to ask, do I really truly need this? Or do I just want that satisfactory feeling of purchasing something, of buying something? And with that power of pause, the 24-hour rule, if anybody has heard of that before, that's a really nice way to help the impulse fade and keep that money in your pocket. So if you put something in your cart, let 24 hours go by and maybe you'll forget about it, or maybe you'll be able to recognize, oh, I actually don't need this. And then another sustainable and budget friendly option is to really just get after what you already own. It might be tucked away, forgotten, get into your closets and your drawers and your cabinets to do your shopping before you would actually go out to buy anything. And then one more thing to keep in mind, you can kind of reframe this as looking at every item that we bring into our lives, there's a hidden tax on it. So every item costs more than its price tag, right? Beyond just that upfront cost. You're now looking at space, you're looking at time, cleaning, maintaining, and eventually the effort of throwing it away. So being able to reduce our overall consumption can help us reclaim our time. And then another way to kind of reframe it is instead of looking for the 20% discount, you can get a 100% discount by just not buying anything. By doing that, you keep your money and you're reducing the demand for new resources. I have another test your knowledge. So I want to look at some specifics. If you can send over a number in the Q&A panel, I just want to get a feel of what you all think. On average, how many minutes do your average American spend on social media? And I recognize that we do have most faculty and staff members. So depending on what generation you are, I know that the amount of social media minutes definitely varies. But yeah, I'm just curious what you all think. How many minutes do Americans spend on social media? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the more scrolling that we do leads to more impulse clicking. It's hard to stay conscious because we're constantly targeted 24/7 by all of the ads and all of that. And maybe this is a chance where you sit and look and do just a personal reality check by just taking a couple seconds, open up your own screen time and see how much you are spending. So we had a 60, 420, 120, so a good range there. And we're actually at 144 minutes. And I put that little popcorn bucket on the slide because to put that 144 minutes into a more tangible way to think about it, that would be like sitting through a 2.5 hour movie every single day. But you're not getting the plot, rather, you're just getting a constant stream of personalized ads. So you're just scrolling and walking through these digital storefronts that are designed to trigger your dopamine. And again, like if you want to, now would be a good time to check that. Personally, I set screen limits on my phone. I know on my social media, I'm a I'm an avid runner, and I ride my bike, and a lot of the personalized feed ads and things are really cute workout clothes. And so being able to take a step back and set some of those screen limits helps me to just eliminate that option of even thinking about, oh, I want to buy something new. All right. Now we have the noise of modern shopping, right? I've talked a couple times about how everything's kind of like in our face. It's right there. And this slide is intentionally busy and it's a little distracting. And that's exactly what our phones can feel like. So I'm going to stop the motion because I know I get distracted. But modern shopping, it's designed to stop us from that pause, and we get caught in that dopamine trap. So the happy hormone hits the second that we see that limited time offer or on sale. And I know I've definitely been persuaded by those buttons, but being able to take that time to stop and think about it can really be impactful. We recognize that retailers spend billions to trigger that impulse within us before our values can even have that chance to kick in. And then another thing to add, digital stores never close. So decision fatigue is real. It's constant, it's chaotic, it's overstimulating, and it's always on. So just curious if anybody has ever shopped after midnight. If you're a late night shopper and you've purchased anything, just send over a thumbs up. It's real. Like I said, customer fatigue is a thing, and it's so much easier to click buy just to be done with it and to have to stop thinking about it. Okay. I'm seeing some of you. I've definitely shopped after midnight on those online when it's open 24/7. And then I have to mention too, on top of all the noise, we live in a consumerist gift economy. We are giving gifts to build the community and build the relationships, but then it often leads to significant waste through unwanted items, through excessive packaging, and then, of course, the extra added on effort that goes behind the returns. So changing our behavior isn't just about wanting something more. Rather, we're just working to navigate this chaos. So the question behind this then, okay, in order to be the conscious consumer and recognize how we can work towards environmental stewardship, how do we simplify? We have from the Atlantic a clip here. And before I hit play, I just want you to take a second to think about the last thing that you purchased online. And then I also want you, while we're going through the clip, to just think about what is one thing that surprises you or something that really sticks out about how our brains react to shopping, or just anything really that sticks out. And then after the video's over, I'll have you share in the chat what that thing might be.
You know that America loves to shop.
I did some shopping. You know, I haven't really uploaded a haul on this channel in a really long time, but to be honest, the shopping never stopped.
Shopping has never been easier. We no longer have to go to a store during limited hours, stock the aisles looking for a product, and then wait in checkout lines. Now, with the click of a button, we have the freedom to shop for anything, anywhere, and at any time.
Every day is Christmas if you buy yourself stuff online.
Products are cheaper than ever, despite having to travel across the world to get to us, which means we often buy things without a second thought.
These are $3. Uno, dos, tres. I will buy one, cause why the hell not?
What's the last thing you bought online?
The last thing I bought online was a milk frother for my Nespresso coffee machine.
I think I bought 5 pairs of jeans, leggings, and sweatpants.
I choose brighter shoes. So you get a dopamine hit when you buy something. It's kind of this pleasure of, oh, I'm buying something, that's fun. But with online shopping, you get that dopamine hit when it arrives too and when you open it. So it's kind of this double benefit. And so it's actually more fun in some ways biologically than buying things in the store.
This biological compulsion to shop is partly due to the way humans are wired.
So there is an evolutionary aspect to this. The people that had the most stuff were most likely to survive. So you gather a lot of food for the winter, you gather a lot of wood for your shelter. And we still have that innate desire to kind of get enough stuff to make sure that we're gonna survive.
Today, despite being surrounded by abundance, Americans are still collecting ever more stuff. In 2017, we spent $240 billion on goods like jewelry, watches, luggage, books, and phones, twice as much as in 2002, even though our population only grew by 13% during that time. Our spending on personal care items like lotions and makeup also doubled over that time.
So we're spending 20% more on clothes than we were in 2000. The average American buys 66 garments a year, which is insane. And we're even spending more on electronics, which is really interesting because electronics are actually cheaper than they used to be. So the dollar amount that we're spending is going up, even though the cost of things is going down.
And now that we do a lot of our shopping online, returning things has become more of a hassle. One survey found that 9 out of 10 shoppers said they never or rarely return online purchases.
And part of this is because things are so cheap. You think, is it really worth $5 of my time to print out the label and go to the post office and send it back when I'm really not going to get that much money back? Why not just keep this and maybe I'll use it eventually?
Have you ever bought anything you didn't end up using?
Most things that I buy online, I feel like I don't wind up using.
A waffle maker, yes, for college, and I never used it. It's probably still in the box in my basement at home.
Yeah, I mean, like lipsticks.
Yeah, I buy clothes a lot, and a lot of times I'm too lazy to return them.
So where does all this stuff go? Well, a lot of it just becomes clutter in our ever-expanding homes. The average square footage of houses in the US rose by 23% in the last 2 decades, while the number of storage facilities doubled. It's become very easy to donate our unwanted goods to thrift stores, which makes us feel better about getting rid of our stuff. But it's estimated that most of the clothes we donate actually end up in landfills. The average American throws away an estimated 81 pounds of clothes and textiles each year, nearly 5 times more than in 1980. We collectively threw away 26 million tons of plastics in 2015, and only 9% got recycled. Consumers continue to want cheaper goods. This means that manufacturers have to cut costs and create lower quality products.
So, you'll buy cheap clothes from H&M and they'll lose their shape after a wash or two. Or you'll even buy appliances, and where they used to last for 10 years, they last for 3 years.
This can't continue. In 20 years, the global middle class is expected to grow by 3 billion people. And we're on track to double the material resources we use by 2060. We're running out of places to put all this trash. By the middle of this century, the amount of plastic items in our oceans will be greater than the number of fish.
And this is actually becoming a problem because China is starting to say, we're not going to take your junk anymore. So all these landfills across America are going to have to figure out what they're going to do with all this stuff that people are throwing away.
Where does that leave us? The movie WALL-E predicted a bleak future where humans filled their planet with so much trash that they had to abandon it for another one. Some consumers are trying to reverse this trend, taking part in growing movements like zero-waste households.
To me, living zero waste means that I don't make any trash.
Or capsule wardrobes.
The rule of thumb is to go down to about 36 items in your closet.
Or doing a year of no shopping.
It was just about not buying things unless I absolutely needed it.
Or minimalism. Some consumers are using their buying power to encourage companies to create more sustainable products.
I should pay people a fair wage and support companies that I like.
But beyond individual choices, we could look for a more encompassing solution. Right now, we make, use, and then trash all of our materials, which can take 1,000 years to biodegrade. Companies could design all of our goods for reuse and to have multiple life cycles before finally composting back into the earth. We could start with clothing. Nearly 100% of our fabrics could be recycled into pulp and turned into new textiles. Otherwise, if nothing changes, let's hope we can make it to Mars in time.
If there was something that really stuck out to you, that really resonated with you, I'm curious as to what that was. Um, Something that I was recently discussing with one of my colleagues was she showed me on Amazon, there's like a haul button, and that was something that I had never heard of. Again, I have a lot of screen limits set on my phone, so I try to stay away from it. But it's very surprising to me to actually go through and see some of those items that are like $1 or $2. And then like in the video, they said that people just don't send the items back because it's only $1 or $2. But yeah, if there's something that really stuck out to you, I'm curious, send it over. Yeah. All right. So looking at just generally being a better steward, we talked about the system is really designed to make it intentionally difficult. But there is good news. You're in the driver's seat, you're in control, and you get to say where your money goes. Becoming a steward, we could kind of look at it as planting seeds. And I know that I just asked you to type out in the chat or in the Q&A, but I am going to launch another poll just as I go through and discuss these. Some of them at least. I'm curious of these options, which, and you don't need to answer it right away, but I just at least wanted to put it out there. But which of these seems like it's the most reasonable, that you'd be most comfortable doing? And so some other ways to be smart with your money while also protecting the environment include borrowing and repairing. So if you don't actually need something for a long time, it's like a one-time use, just find a way to see if you can borrow it. I know for a personal example, my husband, every time he wants to build something and make something out of wood, he calls up a friend that has a table saw instead of going out and buying one. So there, it's helping your pocket and also helping for not needing to have that item be purchased. And then also repairing things, taking it back. Like I remember learning in 6th and 7th grade how to sew buttons and how to make things. So I personally still sew if sewing is a skill that you have or not. It's a great skill to learn, and being able to like fix a chair. If it's not a safety risk, take a chance on fixing it before you go and replace it. You could challenge yourself maybe to a pantry week challenge, like once a month or so, where you commit yourself to 0 grocery shopping and just cook out of your fridge, out of your freezer, and out of your cabinets. So not only does this prevent food waste, but it's saving you a trip or two or a few to the grocery store with gas and everything there, and then saving you maybe $50, maybe $100 in a single week. Right. And then while you're out running your errands, be strategic and bundle your trips so that you're running them all together instead of making one special trip to get gas and one special trip to go to the store. This can help save the wear on your car, the time, and the fuel. Low cost habits, if biking or taking the bus for trips under 5 miles is feasible and doable for you, that's a great way to go about it. Using cold water for laundry or reusing your glass jars for storage. These tiny shifts can add up. Jack, is there anything that you had that that I don't have on here that could be impactful or helpful?
This covers quite a bit, but I'm definitely happy to, add just some thoughts that I'm thinking through kind of as you present this. And I know that you and I had a few really helpful conversations just as we spoke through kind of what the, content of today's presentation was going to look like. And, we worked through some things and asked each other some great questions. And I think that this is a really kind of, frankly, I mean, like for me, this is a pretty thought-provoking topic. Um, but what always comes to mind for me when we're having these conversations about kind of I guess the overlap between environmental stewardship, sustainability, whatever you want to call that kind of concept, and money at the same time. I always run into like the personal kind of wall that it almost starts to sound like, there's a clear right answer to every decision, just buy the better product, support the better company, make the more responsible choice. But I think, the interesting thing about this topic is, that we all live in reality and understand that in practice, it becomes much more difficult to kind of embody those things. Every decision essentially, has trade-offs to it: cost, convenience, availability, habit. Sometimes, oftentimes, the more environmentally friendly option is more expensive, or it's harder to find, or you just don't have the time or information to kind of sort through all those choices. And then, even on top of that, and when you do have the time and the financial ability, the bigger question is always like, how much of this is actually like should be your responsibility as an individual versus like, the bigger picture of, the companies and the systems. And it just sort of branches out, and I think could be, hours of conversation on this topic. And so I always, as we're thinking through this idea of, you are in control, instead of maybe thinking about it as like, what should I do? Maybe it's more useful for folks to ask themselves, what is your personal value system and how do you navigate those trade-offs with your own decisions? Have you reflected about that? Do you have, lines that you draw, or do you feel like, it's okay and you feel comfortable and fine, making, compromises around certain things, and you've really evaluated what feels realistic, what is realistic. Um, yeah, that's kind of where my brain goes, and I'm sure that that's kind of its own rabbit hole to go down. But I think that this is really where this conversation and this topic gets interesting. Not trying to feel the need to get absolutely everything right, but being honest about uh, personal limitations and how people move through these decisions kind of day to day. So definitely keeping an eye on the Q&A if folks do have any additional questions or things. Like I'm keeping an eye on that as Melanie's talking too. So I'm happy to continue to monitor that. And that's what I'd add here, Melanie.
Thank you. I really do appreciate your input on things, and I know we had great conversations about these topics leading up to today. And it's the small shifts. And like you said, it might not always be that the environmentally friendly choice is as helpful for your pocket. And so I think that that's a huge point that you bring up, and it is very thought-provoking. Yeah, thank you. I want to look at then to see what everybody said for the poll. So I'm going to share this out just so everybody can see what was said for the top choices, right? So lots of people saying reducing food waste, buying local, shopping secondhand. I like to see a handful of you in the buy nothing. I think, Jack, after you and I talked, that's like the biggest thing in the back of my mind is I'm not going to buy anything, obviously buying what I need, but that's for me one of the biggest changes that I've made most recently because of our conversations. But looking at some of the comments that were made, also just after that video, someone mentioned minimalism just becoming more appealing with age, beyond anti-consumerism, and living with clutter is a lot of work and it can be very stressful. And this person mentioned how it does take time to reprogram the mindset behind that. I appreciate that insight. Yeah, I'm right there with you with looking at minimalism. I look around and I'm like, what do I even need? But why do I have these things? Someone also mentioned Timo and AliExpress. That's not one that I've heard about, but I'm assuming it's similar to like your Timo or Shein. Highly addictive, very cheap items. Yes. And brought up a couple times, they're very addictive. It can, and it's that dopamine, that hit that we're getting from it. And then someone said, thanks for the reminder on borrowing tools. I hadn't realized there's 2 tool rental businesses. Oh, nice. Wanting to build a cat tree with repurposed materials. I love that. Oh, I'm excited for you to build that cat tree. Yeah, there are a lot of rental businesses out there where you can borrow items, if not from a friend or a colleague or something. There's a lot out there. Alrighty. Okay, so we're looking at some of these ways to go about things. I know sustainable investing is up there, and so we will talk about that after a little bit. But we want to talk a little bit about being sure to research those products. When you're researching, it's important to be a skeptic. And you want to look for the actual data behind everything rather than just that green paint. So ethical companies and ethical brands don't simply say we care. They actually show how they're reducing their footprint. So if you have ever heard of an ethical ratings table, or the one that we're looking at today in specific, the Good Shopping Guide. If you've ever either heard of them or used them, could you send over a heart? I'm curious as to how familiar anyone is with that. And I am going to have Haley drop you the link to the Good Shopping Guide. And I just want to give you a minute to explore this tool, and I'll kind of talk as you dig into that. So check out that Good Shopping Guide link, click into it, and on the upper section, you'll see where it says Explore Ethical Ratings. And then it pops up on the left-hand side. Select a category there. When I went through, I selected fashion, and then my next click after that was activewear. And I could spend a lot of time going through and looking at the Good Shopping Guide and seeing all the information that's out there. There's a little carrot on that table that says learn more, and you can click on that and figure out exactly why that specific brand received its ethical score. And there's 4 categories that the GSG looks at, and that's the impact on the environment, on animals, on people, and then there's other as as one of the categories as well. And like I said, this website has been a game changer. It's a great bookmark to keep on your computer. And there's also a way to look at specific brands instead of just broad categories. So I have some of my favorite brands that I was looking into, and you can click in and search that. And it's nice because it puts it on that scale of the top ethical companies versus the ones who are not having ethical data. And of course, while we're talking about this, I have to mention greenwashing. This is when a company spends time marketing themselves as sustainable, but they're not actually sustainable like they say. So you might be looking at some vague buzzwords like all natural or simply organic, things that make you believe that it is, but they're not backing themselves up with that concrete data. Some of those third-party certifications like B Corp, USDA organic, or fair trade, those actual sustainable brands don't just say that they care, but they really show you that data. And of course, companies take pride in themselves on doing things just to kind of to label themselves as green. For example, switching cups and lids to eliminate waste, but then they're trading it out. Like Jack had talked about some of these trade-offs, and the substitution actually has more plastic than the original design with the cup and the lid. And I have a poll here. Just, Jack and I both have talked. There are hurdles to shopping sustainability and shopping sustainably. And I'm curious, with all of this said, what's the biggest hurdle that keeps you from shopping more sustainably? As you answer that, I want to Nope, I'm getting ahead of myself here. As you're going through and looking at that, I do want to touch quickly on sustainable and ethical investing. So with our financial literacy and financial wellness, growing your wealth for the long term is important, and you can be ethical about it. So we recognize that digital banking is super efficient. However, there are footprints that we don't see or that we don't feel. So with the digital world, digital banking, digital purchasing, all of that, we it's important for us to recognize that we can put the weight back onto our digital dollars. Some of the terms on the screen are common. You maybe have heard of them before. They have similar goals, but go about it differently. And I want to mention that I'm not giving advice. I'm not making recommendations. I'm just providing the information here solely on the purpose of educating. So there's green investing that is people first, where the money is put into companies with social impacts. There's your ESG or environmental, social, governance, and you can kind of look at that as like a report card. And then on the left-hand side, you see the cryptocurrency side of money and finance, and it's kind of like the shiny new thing, but it is a little bit of a tricky fit for stewardship. So it's decentralized, it's exciting. However, the mining process has a huge energy impact. And so if you are looking at crypto, you just want to keep in the back of your mind that there's that huge financial risk along with the high environmental footprint. Again, as with everything else, just making sure to take a step back and look at that data. So the takeaway here, it's not that digital money is bad, but we just have to recognize that there are some unseen footprints. And again, just hitting home with the point that we're voting with our wallets, we're voting with our pockets. And if you are choosing to invest ethically and sustainably, it's a direct vote there for the kind of energy in the future that we want to build. All righty. So thinking then, this is a conversation that we have a lot at the center. When you hold a $20 bill in your hand, you feel its value and there's a physical weight to it. However, when we use credit cards, we use digital apps, we use the tapping, and that weight of the money disappears. So when we actually spend, studies show that when we actually spend more and think less about where it's going, we can't feel that currency. And I know we wanted to really kind of talk about looking at how to share out that research. So as I get that pulled up for us, are you able to just talk a little bit about what that looks like when we're researching the products and how to share out that information?
Yeah, I think you did a really good job talking a little bit about kind of the verification of some of these things. And I threw my own definition, like really briefly, of greenwashing in the chat here too. The implicit kind of like, this is going to sound redundant because I was going to say the implicit implication, but the implication of a lot of this content that's being shared, is that there is an opportunity to kind of continue to educate yourself about all sorts of, different frameworks for what it means to be a conscious consumer, whatever, realm we're thinking about. If we're thinking about, the clothes that you're buying or whatever else it is, there's an opportunity for you to kind of do your research and kind of educate yourself on how you want to be making those choices. Melanie shared some great examples of things like the shopping guide and some other frameworks for the investing, that I think is a great start for kind of giving you something that's, verified and validated, that I think you can trust that the choices that you're making kind of have been vetted by standards that are, verifiable. As I mentioned, my definition of greenwashing that I threw in the chat was that it's essentially the idea of using the concept of eco-friendly as a marketing tool. So putting the words eco-friendly or environmentally conscious or whatever it is onto, the packaging of something as a way to get you to buy it at more than an actual kind of reflection of, that particular object's supply chain or life cycle. So as I mentioned earlier when I was talking, there's obviously trade-offs involved in decision making, especially when you kind of scale out and start to think about the financial system that you are, part of, and that your choices are, ultimately a constituent element of. But the idea of just being critical and starting with your own kind of thinking around how you're assessing the choices that you're making, I think is the best place to start.
Thank you, Jack. I told you right before we got on, I am struggling with technology today, so I apologize.
Not a problem at all. No, not a problem at all.
I appreciate the insight that you bring on taking that step back to be able to look at things and see them through a different light, because of you being in a different position. Whereas here at the Finlit Center, we see things from the financial aspect. So I really do appreciate having your input there.
Yeah, I think with these up on the screen, it's good to, just to give folks who are tuned in right now, like an example of kind of, I think a great way to kind of, pivot your thinking. That first question of what factors might influence a company's ethical practices and how do those impact consumers? I think that that's kind of a really, if you want to take a step back after this meeting today, this evening, when you're having your evening tea or whatever it is, and reflect. I think that that's an interesting way to think about it rather than maybe asking the question of what can I do to like change X, Y, or Z. I think that that's if you start to focus too much on, your responsibility as an individual, it can feel overwhelming and make you shut down. Maybe I'm speaking for myself, but when I think about big systemic things like climate change or whatever, if I set out with the goal of thinking about how I can, change things single-handedly, that's a great recipe for feeling overwhelmed very quickly. And so, like the way that these questions are framed here, and I know we'll get, shared out with folks, is just to kind of promote the idea of thinking about things systemically, and not putting too much of a burden on yourself, but still understanding the power that you have as an individual to kind of drive your choices and your individual part as a piece of the whole.
Absolutely. Okay, we are nearing our end, so I want to just get things kind of wrapped up. And if anybody has any lingering questions, I see some in the Q&A panel right now, and I'll definitely address, but I just want to be mindful of everyone's time. So if you do need to check out, that's totally fine. But I'll kind of open up here for like a couple of minutes of Q&A if anybody does have. But just curious of one small change that you feel like you're ready to make today as you're processing it, like Jack said, thinking about this, reflecting on it. All right, well, I think we will wrap it up then. Jack, thank you. I really appreciate you being here and just having your insight and information that you were able to bring to us. And I appreciate the work that you do.
Yeah, great job. Thank you for the opportunity to help. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.